Well, good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us to honor a family who works hard on the land that we stand on now, and whose generosity is also very inspiring. My name is Dan Templin. I serve as the Executive Director of the DeKalb County Community Foundation. Your Community Foundation is a nonprofit foundation with a mission to enhance the quality of life in DeKalb County through the generosity and in partnership with generous people who want to give back to the community. I'd like to just quickly recognize one of our board members, Mickey Chulik, Vice President of our board, is here. Also, Donor Services and Marketing Director Noah is here on staff with the foundation. We're also honored to have Patti Wright Cronin with us today. Patti will introduce some other members of her family and share some comments with us in a few minutes. Patti's mother, this is why we're here, Patti's mother, Dorothy Wright, donated the family's 173-acre farm to the DeKalb County Community Foundation through her estate in 1995. The sale of the land resulted in an endowment fund being established at the Community Foundation. At the time, it was the second largest gift the Community Foundation had received in its history. The Rodney and Dorothy Wright Fund, which still exists, is a community impact fund. It's an endowment that provides grant dollars for our board to respond to needs and opportunities in organizations and causes around DeKalb County. Over $1 million in grants have been awarded in the last 20 years from the Wright Fund in support of organizations and projects in the areas of education, health and human services, community development, and arts and culture. So community impact funds have a broad reach around supporting our quality of life in a number of different areas. And the Wright Fund has been one of our hallmark funds for years to give our board those resources. As your community foundation celebrates our 25-year anniversary this year, we're humbled by the generosity of the Wright family and thousands of other people, whether they donate $1 or $1 million, they're partnering with us to give back to the community through our mission, through our services. I'd like to now invite Phil Young, who's the president of the Board of Commissioners for the DeKalb Park District, to say a few words.
Thank you, Dan. Morning. Still have to have paper for my speeches, sorry. On behalf of the DeKalb Park District Board of Commissioners and the Park District, I wanted to welcome everyone here today. In particular, of elected officials, I wanted to call out Tony Favor, 7th Ward Alderman, and is part of this area. So thank you, Tony, for being here. And I also wanted to acknowledge Park District staff, in particular our Executive Director, DeKalb. When I initially heard about changing the name of the park, we're always a little reticent about doing that because park names have a reason, history. And when I heard why they were going to change it, I thought governmental was for a reason. It was just a subdivision. But when I heard the name was really going for the person's family that donated the land, I thought, what a great thing to do, and it's definitely justified. And changing names for parks should be a difficult thing because you don't want the political wind of someone coming in and saying, well, we're going to change the name this year and then, down the road. Names should have a reason. There should be some history behind it. And I think changing this name to Wright Farm Park is appropriate. When we think of parks in general, they're a great asset to the community. If you look at national studies, you will see that parks have an intrinsic value on people in terms of their mind and their body. Parks just bring so many things, like little children there that want to run around. The trails, the recreation abilities, just being able to get outdoors. We have so much today in society where everyone is stuck indoors or on the internet, there's texting and social media. And we need to have more of this. We need to have places that we can go locally. I think parks have an extreme value. To endow monies or to donate land to different types of communities, agencies is a wonderful thing. And in light of that, we do want to recognize the generous donation that the Wright family has made to the DeKalb community. It's an extraordinary thing to think that this was once a farm and that they decided to donate that to the public. And in renaming this park, after Wright family, we do pay homage to why this park exists in the first place. And we can hope that as people come to this park, they will learn the history, why the park is named this, why we got the land, and in a way that also creates a legacy and immortalizes the tradition. And I want to thank Patti in particular, the family, for the charitable contributions. So on behalf of the DeKalb Park District, I wanted to, in this renaming ceremony, say that this is for our citizens, and from this time forth we will know this as the Wright Farm Park. Thank you.
Patti?
Thank you all very much for coming out. I too have to have my papers with me because there's so many people to thank. For me, this is somewhat of a pinch me moment in the sense that as a child, I spent many, many wonderful hours here on the farm, so I probably have been on this very spot of land many, many years ago doing many other things. This wouldn't have happened if it wasn't for the follow-through, the support, the we can get this done attitude of so many that are here today. So bear with me while I thank just a few of them, and if I have forgotten you, it's not because I meant to. For the Board of Commissioners of the DeKalb Park District, to Phil Young and his board, to Dean Holliday, Keith Nyquist, Patti Perkins, Dave Grada, and to Amy Dahl, who helped see this through as the executive director of the Park District. It takes a lot of people, as Phil said, to change the name of a park. You just don't do it because it doesn't sound right or you'd like it to be something else. I'd also like to thank the Devonshire Homeowners Association, Jeff Davis. Are any of the homeowner folks with us this morning? Well, thank you very much.
Oh, I just live here.
Oh, well, that's and I'll tell you why it counts a lot, because you have to have the homeowners' approval before you can change the name of their park. So it's a wonderful, active community, and they were very, very supportive. So even though the Park District might have said yes, if this lady and her friends and other homeowners didn't, it wouldn't have been a go. So I want to especially thank you and for coming this morning. And finally, and certainly not last but least, the DeKalb County Community Foundation, Frank Roberts and Dan Templin. They have been, again, very, very supportive of the whole idea, so I couldn't have done it without them. And for any of the other friends that have come, I thank you for coming. I see other Wrights by different generations that are here. Would you want to raise your hand? Who are related to me through grandparents and other farmers in the community. There is someone representing the Faber family from across the road. Chuck Faber and his family of kids were very, very good. Chuck! Wonderful, wonderful. Very supportive of my father, and I'll tell you why in a moment. Chuck will know this. And then I want to thank my small family from coming to join us today. First, I'd like to think that my mother, father, and sister are with us in spirit. My mother's here through her scarf, my father's here through the donuts, and my sister is here through her lovely daughters, Amanda, Zaluga, and her husband's son, and their darling son, Aiden, who's with us, and Amanda's younger sister, Ann, and they're Illinois residents, and then my son, Kevin, who is obviously the grandson of Rodney and Dorothy, and my husband, Kevin. And that is the entire Wright family, as we know it. So I thank all of you who have come today. Just a quick, brief history of the farm. My grandparents lived in DeKalb. DeKalb has always been very important to them. My father's parents, my grandfather was a doctor, Dr. Wright, and delivered a lot of babies in the community, so people would come up and say, oh, do you remember so-and-so. So a lot of history. And my grandmother on that side was a nurse, and they lived over by the old post office. On the other side, my mother's family, my grandfather was station master at the railroad, and the railroad was very important to the DeKalb community at that time, and it was a way to get into Chicago without having to drive on the stop-and-go roads before they put in all the other ones. And my grandmother was at home mother. And so my grandparents grew up in DeKalb. My parents grew up in DeKalb. They met in grade school. Depending who you ask, they fell in love at that time. My mother wouldn't quite describe it that way, but they got together, they went off to college, and when my mother became engaged to someone, a football player at Northwestern, my father flew in and said, that's not going to work. And my mother was engaged to 2 different men on one weekend. So you can understand why it's a little crazy in our family. But, so they got married, and rather than live in DeKalb, which still meant so much to them, my father had an opportunity to become a lawyer in Elgin, and that's where I and my sister Sarah grew up, in Elgin. But the farm was always in our family as long as I can remember. Part of that was the respect that my father had for farming. One of his relatives who owned farms down in Champaign owned a farm, and they dedicated land to the University of Illinois. And if any of you have been down there, at one time the main street was Wright and Green Street, and the Wright family donated that farmland. My father thought that would be a nice legacy to donate farms, and since then, many men in the family have donated, men in families, have donated farms to charitable communities. And so we have 2 representatives here who are still farming, and they can probably attest to that or tell you more stories than I am. But part of being a farmer's daughter in the city, I was probably the only girl in Elgin High School that grew up listening to the Hog Report and the soybean futures, because I knew that dictated how Christmas was going to be or how my allowance was going to be. So I listened to that very closely. I learned many lessons on the farm. I learned life and death on the farm. I learned what it was to pull in your belt in lean years, and I learned what it was to celebrate when things went well. And I think most farmers can attest to that. I learned the wonderfulness of neighbors through the family, the Favors, who were always there to help my family when they needed help. I went to invite the Willies to join us, and I learned that the Willie family, they're still alive, but they are 100 and 102 years old and sent their best wishes. So farmers are a tough group and a wonderful group. So, long story short, it's been a wonderful thing. I'd just like to share one quick story. When I was in middle school, our farmhouse, you'll still see the white farmhouse, and that was always occupied by a farm family. It had 13 bedrooms, which makes it sound palatial, but it wasn't. There was enough for a cot and a small nightstand, and you'd walk through one bedroom to get to the next bedroom. There was no closet. So that was the family, the farmhouse that was there. It's still there. The farm was originally 200 acres, but my parents took off some acreage to build their home, which is the ranch home you see just beyond that. But when the wind, as some of you homeowners will know, comes from the northwest, it can be very, very strong as it rolls across. So in school I learned trees are great for erosion and protection. So I heard that the federal government was giving away 100 trees to whoever wanted them free. So I wrote my little letter, this was before email, and sent off to the federal government, we have a farm that could use 100 trees. The letter came from the federal government. My mother, when I came home from school one day, said, you have a letter from the federal government. And she said, why is the federal government writing you? I'll tell you at dinner. And I ran in my room, opened the letter, and we had won the 100 trees. 100 trees were going to be delivered to the farm. Well, I imagined trees like this, and instant erosion protection, and instant shade, and instant protection from the wind. The 100 trees that arrived would have fit in the back of all of your cars. They were 100 little things like this. I also learned who plants, when you order those things, who plants those trees. So one weekend I was dropped off at the farm and said, we'll pick you up on Sunday and we've saved one of the bedrooms for you. Good luck. And that was before cell phone, so it wasn't like you'd pick up the cell phone. But I had read Tom Sawyer and recruited some of my other city friends, and we came out and we planted those little boogers, 100 of them, And if you go just beyond that ranch house, you will see pine trees, I don't know, 40, 50 feet tall, that all started like this. So there's a lesson to be learned that Mother Nature has her way of helping us all. So I don't want to go on and on. I could tell a lot of stories, and I don't want to. The farm, we raised beef cattle, and we raised pigs, and we raised a very mean turkey that everyone was happy to see on the Thanksgiving dinner. We had the most beautiful horse in the world, in my estimation. She was half nag and half racehorse. If she was leaving the barn, she was all nag and went very slow no matter how much you kicked her. And if she was coming back to the barn, she was all racehorse and you hung on for dear life. We never did train her. She was wonderful. We raised crops of sweet corn and soybeans. And that's what the farm was about. Farms across the road raised many of those similar crops. And so I'm just thrilled to be here today, and I don't want to take up all your time because there's donuts and everybody's got a busy Saturday. But this is wonderful for me, and I just want to say one thing to the homeowners. Over in the corner, there was an acre of land that was designated by the state of Illinois as the most fertile land in the entire state. And so my father was paid not to farm, not to plant it. The favors are nodding yes. Not to plant on that acre of land, and they would do experiment. Well, I would do testing of every little thing, set the soil sample in. So somewhere over there are probably 4 or 5 houses where the grass is much greener than everybody else's. The landscaping is much better. Don't feel bad if you're not one of those. It has nothing to do with you and everything to do with the lots they chose. So that is part of the farm story. I am thrilled for the park. I am thrilled to see children using the park, make it a usable park, because that's what parks are for. And as Phil said, in this day and age where we're all so glued to our technical things and half the time connected to a cord, it's nice to go into a park sometime and just realize what's around us. And so I'm asking each of you, in memory of my family, if you can make the park as clean as you found it. If you bring food in, please take it out. If you bring junk in, take it out. The park district can only do so much. And we don't want to change the name to the wrong park. You guys have got the right park. And I'm just thrilled. And again, thank you, everybody.
All right.